Welcome to the first part of phase 3, and in this phase we are going to do a small exercise which is going to help you to create this small scene so that it can help you to get real quick start in Blender as a beginner. So as you can see in my 3D viewport that I have this scene, right? So in this scene we have this lamp with a geometric shape base, and then we have couple of plants with triangular base, and then we have floor, a wall, and these two lights which we are actually using with the machine shader. So this is the render of this scene which you can clearly see how pretty it looks. So we're gonna set up this entire scene completely from scratch in this entire phase. So starting with this first tutorial in which we are going to work on this lamp which we're gonna create completely from scratch, and we are also going to apply materials to this lamp in this tutorial. So let's get started. So now we have this new Blender scene. So first of all I'm gonna select everything in the viewport and just gonna delete it. And now we're going to start modeling our lamp completely from scratch. So to start modeling our lamp, I'm going to start from the base of the lamp which had that geometric design. So to create the base, I'm going to add an icosphere in my 3D viewport by simply pressing Shift A, go to Mesh and add this icosphere. Open up this caddy and crank down the radius to like 20 cm like that. However, the dimensions of the lamp can be real custom. You can actually use any dimension you want. I'm going to use my own dimensions for the sake of this tutorial, so you can simply hang on with me. So now we need to make the top and the bottom of this icosphere flat so that it can rest easily on our floor. So I'm going to edit mode to edit this icosphere. Go to front mode and go to wireframe mode, select these vertices, and now scale them down on Z axis by simply pressing 0 numpad button. And now scale them down on Z axis like that. Similarly select these vertices, scale them down on Z axis by simply pressing 0 on your keyboard like that. And now we have successfully created our icosphere with flat top as well as the bottom of the base. So now I'm going to duplicate this mesh so that we can create those white strips on the edges of this icosphere. So make sure you keep selected that icosphere and go to modify tab here and open up this tab and select this wireframe modifier. And now you can see it has created a wireframe on all over the body of this icosphere, right? So crank down the thickness a little bit like that. 0.5 is enough. So now you can see we have created this wireframe pretty nicely, right? But it has a wireframe on the top as well as this bottom which we want to remove so that our base can rest easily on floor without any problem. So to do that, simply select this wireframe, go to edit mode, and now simply select this vertex and delete it. Similarly select the bottom one and simply delete it. And now you can see we have pretty nice wireframe on our lamp base, right? So now the next thing I'm going to create is the rod of the lamp which is going to help me to connect this lamp base to my lamp shade. So go to front mode and now add a cylinder. Make sure you crank down these vertices to like 12 and radius to about like 1 cm. It should be enough. Crank down this depth to like 35 cm. I think that a little bit like probably 40 cm. That should be enough. And now grab it up on the Z axis like that. And now I want to extrude this rod out right from this point where it is actually joining that lamp base. So to extrude it out, I'm going to edit mode, and now I'm gonna add a loop in this cylinder by simply pressing Ctrl R on my keyboard. And now you can see it is indicating a loop directly on that cylinder in a yellow color, right? So I only want to add one loop, so simply press left mouse button and then drag it out all the way down here where you actually want to create the extrusion like that. And now I'm going to change to face mode and I'm going to select these faces. And now I'm going to press E on my keyboard and then simply press escape button. And now you can simply scale these faces out on X and Y axis by simply pressing S, and remove Z axis by pressing Shift and Z, and now extrude it out like that. And now you have created that extrusion pretty nicely. And now I'm going to shade smooth this entire cylinder by simply go to object mode and use this shade smooth. And I'm also going to apply a subdivision modifier to add more subdivisions and smoothness to my rod like that, and crank this value to 2. And if I zoom out, and now you can see it has got some sort of bulging in on the top of this rod, which is not exactly what we want. It has also caused this bulging in from the bottom, which you can simply see from the wireframe mode like that. So we need to prevent this bulging. So to prevent it, first of all I'm going to isolate from the view by simply pressing slash on my keyboard like that. And now I'm going to add few more loops which are going to help me to retain the shape of this rod on all the edges more smoothly. So to retain the shape, you can simply add more loops by simply pressing Ctrl R and then simply drag it out all the way up here. And now you can see it is kind of helping us to preserve the shape on the edge of this rod, right? So whenever you're going to apply subdip modifier to any one of your model and it gives you such bulging results, so make sure you always provide more loops as supporting edges to help the mesh retain its shape. So similarly, I'm also going to add a face inside this top layer by simply pressing I like that. And now you can see it has perfectly retained its shape and looking pretty smooth, right? But as you can see, it has also affected this area of this rod. So again, we need to add a supporting edge right onto this end of this rod. So simply add a loop like that and take it down all the way down here like that. And now you can see it is also helping it to retain its shape on this point. So adding these supporting edges by simply adding a loop and dragging them all the way up and down on the two edges, you can simply do one more thing, which is going to be the bevel. So to do that, you can simply select the whole edge like that and then simply press Ctrl B on your keyboard. And now you can see it is actually helping you to add the bevel on the edge. And you can also add segments by simply using your mouse wheel like that. And now you can see we have added one more segment in between those two loops. So now it is helping us to retain the shape of the model as well as it is adding more smoothness to the edge. Because in real life, nothing is 90 degrees sharp. So make sure you add smoothness to the edges. However, you can also add multiple segments just like this bevel when you are creating loops. Suppose if you press Ctrl R on this edge and now if you use your mouse wheel to add more segments, you can see you can add multiple segments in your loop too. However, I'm also going to add bevel on this edge. So select whole edge by simply holding Alt Shift on your keyboard like that. And now simply press Ctrl B, add a segment like that, and now press left mouse button to apply it. And now we have pretty nice shape on the bottom. Just like that loop, you can also select the ring of your mesh by simply changing to your edge mode, and now press Alt and Ctrl on your keyboard, and now simply left mouse click on one of these vertical edges, which is this, and now you can see it has successfully created your entire ring of this mesh. So that's how you can simply select your loop and ring in edit mode. We also need to add a loop down here just like that, and now it has a pretty nice clean topology on all the edges, which is looking pretty nice, right? So let me grab it up a little bit like that, and now it is looking pretty nice. And now I'm gonna select this top edge, zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to extrude out these faces from this rod. So simply change into face mode, select all the faces by simply pressing Alt Shift on your keyboard and left mouse click like that, and now press E on your keyboard to extrude and escape it, and now simply press S to scale, Shift Z to remove Z axis, and now simply scale it out like that. We are actually creating this circular extrusion because we are going to connect our lamp rod with lampshade with the help of connectors, and we are going to connect those connectors right into this circular extrusion of this rod. And now just like before, we need to apply bevel on these two edges. So change to edge mode, and now simply select this edge, this one, and press Ctrl B. And now we have added that bevel successfully right onto this circular extrusion. We also need to add a loop down here to make it more smooth on this edge, which is looking pretty nice, right? Add this one. Also add one here like that, looking pretty nice. Probably grab this circular extrusion a little bit down from here. Move it down a little bit just like that. I think that should be enough. So now let's just come out from our isolation view and see how it's gonna look with scene. So rod looks pretty nice. I think I should crank up the height a little bit, just like 10 centimeters like that should be enough. Probably scale down the base a little bit, so select the base and scale it down like 0.85. I think that should be enough. So I'm gonna grab this rod and I'm gonna push it down a little bit just like that, so that I can only get this circular extrusion right on the top of this lamp base. And now I think it looks really nice, but I think the top circular extrusion of this rod should be a little bit scaled up a little bit more. So I'm going to edit mode. So I'm gonna zoom in to that point and I'm gonna deselect this edge, similarly this one, and probably this one too. And now I'm going to, and these ones too. And I'm going to scale them out a little bit on X and Y axis, just like that, so that we can get enough diameter, which looks perfectly fine with the proportions of the lamp. So I'm going to select this top edge and I'm going to grab it out a little bit on the Z axis like that. So I think now it looks perfectly fine. Yeah. And I'm going to create shade of the lamp. So to do that, I'm going to simply add a circle like that, turn down the vertices to 12 and radius to like 25 centimeter like that. And now move it all the way up to on the Z axis, right up to here. And now simply go to edit mode, select all the vertices, extrude them down on Z axis like negative 40 centimeter. I think that should be enough. Scale them up like 1.5. Looks pretty nice. So probably try to move them down a little bit like that, right up to here. And I'm going to provide a little bit thickness to this shade of the lamp. So to provide thickness, I'm going to use a modifier which is known as the solidify modifier, which actually helps us to give a thickness to our polygons, just like wall. So as you can see, it has clearly provided that thickness to my lamp shade. So crank down the thickness to like 0.1. I think that should be enough. And the next thing you need to do is apply the subdivide modifier to give smoothness to this lamp shade. And to do so, you can simply use subdivide modifier from here, or you can simply press Ctrl 2 on your keyboard to simply add subdivision modifier up to level 2 in viewport as well as for render. So as you can see, we still have this flat shading, so smooth shade. So as you can see, it has created some sort of darkness on the bottom and on the top, and this is happening due to the absence of those supporting loops on the top edge as well as on the lower edge. So simply go to edit mode, add a loop and press left mouse button and press escape. And now we're going to use this loop to add 2 more loops more quickly for the top edge as well as for the lower edge by simply using Ctrl B, which is the bevel command. And now you can see it has generated 3 loops from that one. One is the segment which was already in the memory of computers, so simply use mouse wheel button to remove that segment, and now simply drag your mouse like that. And now you can see it has automatically and accurately moved your loop right onto the top edge as well as on the bottom edge with equal distance. And now simply press left mouse button, and now you have successfully added 2 loops on the top edge as well as the lower edge of the lampshade. So let's go back to the object mode. And if you feel like your lampshade is a little bit thin, you can simply crank up the thickness a little bit, just like that. That should be enough. And now I'm going to create clamps for this lampshade, both on top as well as on the bottom. So simply go to edit mode, select the face mode, and now I'm gonna select these faces like that as well as these faces like that. And now press Shift D to duplicate them, and then press P on your keyboard to separate them from this mesh by simply using this selection. And now you can see they are converted to orange color, which means now they are a separate mesh from this one which I have already selected in edit mode. So now simply get back to the object mode, and now you can simply select that mesh separately from this lampshade. And now I'm going to increase the thickness a little bit from solidify modifier like that. And now I'm going to apply this modifier like that. And I'm going to scale out these clamps a little bit like that, like they are actually connecting this lampshade. So as you can see, we have these clamps on the top and the bottom of this lampshade, right? So they're looking pretty nice, but they are actually circular in shape because we have created them from this lampshade by simply separating them from the mesh. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply going to edit mode, and first I'm going to select the inner faces of this top layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply going to change my selection to face mode and isolate my clamps like that, and deactivate this subdivide modifier in the viewport. And I'm going to select these internal faces like that, and I'm going to scale them down a little bit to the inside like that, so that I can get enough mesh to connect my connector arms right into the lamp's rod. So I think that should be enough. And now I'm going to select all the edges of these clamps from the top as well as from the bottom, so that I can apply a bevel modifier to add more smoothness on the edges and prevent it from being circular in the shape. So simply press Ctrl B on your keyboard like that and hold and hold shift key to add bevel more slightly on the edges, just like that, and add one segment like that. And now activate this subdiv modifier back again, and now get out of edit mode. And now we have pretty nice clamps on the top as well as on the bottom of the lampshade. Simply come back to the real scene like that, and now it's looking pretty nice. So now we're gonna create the connector arms to connect the top clamp of this lampshade with our lamps rod. So to create a connector's arm, I'm going to add a curve, Bezier curve, and I'm going to scale it down a little bit like that, and rotate it on the y-axis like 90 degrees, rotate it on z-axis like 190 degrees like that, and move it all the way up right here. And now go to edit mode, take this point and move it all the way up here like that, and now select this vertex and move it all the way up down here like that, and rotate it all the way like that, like 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees, like this angle. And now you need to add one more subdivision right in the middle. So to do that, simply select all the vertices by pressing A, press right mouse button and then simply subdivide. And now we have this third subdivision in the middle, so simply grab it out all the way down here like that. And now simply select all the vertices and now press V on your keyboard, and now change the handle type to vector, because we want to create more like a corny or edgy connector. So simply we have that now with the help of vector handle type. So now simply go to the curve properties, make sure you have this fill mode on full, then go down to this geometry and crank up this depth a little bit like that. And now you can see the connector arm looking pretty nice, and now it is completely connected from this point to this point, which is actually connecting this lampshade to our rod. And now we need to copy this connector arm 2 more times inside this lampshade. And to do so, first of all, select this rod and move your cursor onto the origin of this rod into the center by simply pressing Shift S, cursor to selected. And now we have our cursor right into the center of this rod. And now simply change your pivot point to 3D cursor, select this rod, go to top view and then press Alt D to create an instance duplicate of this rod. Now press R on your keyboard to rotate it around like 120 degree like that. Similarly, to create another instance by simply pressing Alt D, and now simply rotate it around like 120 degree again. And now we have these 3 connector arms at 120 degree polarity from each other inside this lampshade. So now we have successfully created our lampshade as well as entire lamp, but one thing we have missing is our bulb. However, for the sake of this tutorial series, I'm only going to use a point light inside this lampshade. But if you want to develop some more 3D modeling skills on your own, then you can simply find any reference from Google about bulb holder and then try to model it down by yourself, and then try to place it on the top of this rod over here, and then simply use any sphere with the mission shader as a bulb on that holder, and it is definitely going to help you to develop more 3D modeling skills on your own. But for the sake of this tutorial, because we are not going to take any render from the inside of this lampshade, I'm going to only use a point light in the center of this lampshade. So before adding a point light or materials to this lamp, first of all, let's just quickly parent all the objects with each other, so that if we move this lamp base, so make sure all the lamps stay connected to each other. So to do that, simply select this wireframe mesh and then select this mesh of this base, and now press Ctrl P on your keyboard, and now simply parent that wireframe to your icosphere mesh. And now if I select this mesh and try to move it around, you can see the wireframe also moves with it. However, if you select this wireframe and try to move it around, you can see it is only moving along but not the mesh. But you can also parent this base mesh with this wireframe, that's completely up to you. And now I'm going to connect this rod to this base mesh by simply pressing Ctrl P and then parent to the object. And now this rod also gonna move with this lamp, with this base of the lamp like that. And now we need to connect those connector arms with our rod. So make sure you select it and then Ctrl P to connect them. And now I'm also going to connect these clamps right with this rod of this lamp, so that does not dislocate the center position of this lamp. So simply press Ctrl P and then simply select the object. And now if I move this rod, you can see it is also moving those clamps. And now simply select this lampshade and parent it with these clamps. Ctrl P, object, and now it is also parented. So now we have successfully created our lamp. So now it's time to throw some materials on this entire lamp. So let's start from this wireframe. Select this one, go to materials, add a material, which is going to be the wireframe. And I'm only going to use this base color a little bit low, just like that. And I'm going to crank down the roughness to like 0.2 5. I think that should be enough. Then we're going to select this entire UV mesh and let me check if it is unwrapped or not. So simply go to edit mode, select the entire mesh, go to UV editing, and now you can see it is already unwrapped by default system of the Blender. So we're going to use this UV unwrapped map for our material. So now simply add a material, lamp base, like that, and open up the shader editor over here, shader editor. And now we are going to create our PBR texture setup. But before using anything, make sure you have activated Node Wrangler into your Blender system. So if you have activated it, so simply press Ctrl Shift T on your keyboard and then select the texture which we are going to apply on our lamp base. I will leave the link in description box, so don't worry about that. So select these textures and now simply apply it. And now we have the PBR texture setup in our shader editor. And now we can simply check this texture setup into a material preview window, and texture looks pretty nice, but we need to crank up the scale a little bit. So I'm going to crank up to like 8 by 8 by 8, and that looks perfectly fine. And I think this white material is a little bit dull, so make sure you crank it up a little bit so that we can get accurate white color tone in our scene, like that. And I'm going to add a metal material for my rod. So simply select the rod, add a material, metal, and I'm going to crank up this metalness to completely 1, like that, and turn down the roughness to like 0.2 so that we can get enough dispersion from our metallic rod. And now I want to apply this metal material onto my connector arms as well as these clamps of this lamp. So make sure you have the active selection on your rod. So once you have, then simply press Ctrl L on your keyboard and then simply use this material. And now you can see it has a make links written on it, which means we are going to link this material onto a few other parts of this subject, which is the lamp. So simply select the material, and now you can see it has also applied the metallic material onto the clamps as well as to the connector rods. And the only thing we have left is this lampshade, which is also going to be very quick. So turn down this mode and let's add another material, which is going to be the lampshade. And for this lampshade, I'm going to use a linen texture. So to do that, simply add an image texture, go down here, and I'm going to open up a texture, select this one, and I'm going to connect this texture to this base color, like that. And I'm also going to add a mix RGB node for my color. Simply add it right here, make sure you connect it on the bottom, and I'm going to change this blending mode to multiply and crank up the factor value to 1. And I'm also going to add a color ramp node right here, and I'm going to connect this to the top node right here. I'm not going to play with these settings, but I will tell you later why I'm using this. So the next thing I'm going to do is simply going to add a mix shader in between these nodes. Go to shader, mix shader node, simply connect it, and now I'm going to add a translucent shader, which is going to help us to create that translucency effect for our lamp. Just simply connect it down here, and now make sure you connect this texture with this translucent shader so that we can get the translucent effect right through our linen texture. So I'm also going to use mapping nodes to scale up this texture a little bit on this lamp. So simply select this texture, press Ctrl T, and now we have this texture mapping and texture coordinate setup for our texture. Simply connect up the scale to like 5 by 5 by 5. So now I'm going to quickly add a point light in the scene so that we can see how this lampshade gonna look like. So I'd add a point light right in the center, move it all the way up, right up to here, and crank down the size a little bit so that we can get a little bit more like a sharp shadows, just like that. And I'm also going to use these nodes. Make sure you crank down the power to like 3, and I'm going to keep the strength to 1. So let's just quickly check in our material preview window that how it's gonna look. And as you can see, it doesn't pass through any light from this material, right? But there is a light inside this lampshade, right? So what is the reason behind it? Well, the reason is we didn't unwrap this lampshade. So first we need to unwrap this lampshade by simply adding a seam onto the back side of this lamp, which is going to be the other side, which is going to be this. So simply add a seam right up here. So to add seam, simply press Ctrl E, mark seam, select the entire mesh, press U to unwrap it, and now simply go to UV editing to see if it is unwrapped. And now you can see it is clearly unwrapped the lampshade. So simply go to layout, and now if you activate the render preview, you can see now there is some sort of lighting shade in our lamp, right? So simply you can crank up this translucency factor from this mixer shader value, just like that. So as you can see, the translucency looks perfectly fine, but make sure you crank down this specularity to 0 as well as this roughness, because we are using a fabric texture as a linen. So make sure you crank down these values, because in real life fabric textures don't reflect just like any other object, right? And now we're also going to crank up the scale a little bit more, so I'm gonna use it to like 888. So this color ramp node will gonna help you to control the white and black tones of this texture on this lampshade, so which you can only see by simply lowering this mix shader value like that. And now if you play with this color ramp node, you're gonna see it is actually cranking up or down the value of this lampshade, right? And that's how you can manipulate the black and white tones of your lampshade with the help of this color ramp. So I'm gonna crank up this value back to 0.7 where it was. So now lamp looks perfectly fine. So if still there is anything which we need to change about the lighting of the lamp, then we will do it in third part of this phase, in which you're gonna set up the entire scene with lighting and as well as camera. So that's it for this part, guys. So now we have successfully created this lamp completely from scratch, and it looks perfectly fine. Materials look pretty nice. So now we're gonna use this lamp in part 3, in which we're gonna set up our entire scene with lighting, cameras and all. So that's it for this tutorial, and see you guys in the next part.